So on to Aquarius, and well, so this is the summer season if you're in the northern hemisphere. This is the winter if you're in the southern hemisphere. And what I'm going to sort of pace you through over the next 20 to 30 minutes is how you might want to use the time over the next, not calendar months, but zodiac months. So in the zodiac month of Cancer, then Leo, and then Virgo, and that's what this season consists of. And in my sort of typical way, I've broken the chart down into each of the distinct seasons, because I always think that to understand where we're going, it's important to know where we've just come from. And so I also think that if you understand what you've been laying down, what you've been recently completing and dealing with, it gives you a much better focus on what's coming up and how you might handle that. In particular, I've also put in the opposite seasons to the last season and to this season. Why have I done that? Well, I really think all of these like these opposing pairs, these parallels, these spectrums. So for instance, you know, with Aries and Libra, we have this sort of individualism versus not collectivism, but this connected. So we're a loner or we're, you know, with people. You know, there are different ways of looking at things. And, you know, you've got your Aquarius ascendant, which really is about collectivism and a created joy from everyone's voice. And then Leo in the opposing sign in your 7th house is very much about your sovereign expression. So you've got like this collective expression and joy and the great vision. And then you've got your solo vision, you know, so each of these partners are like equals and or opposites, you know, like they are working on a similar thing along a spectrum of maybe vision, you could say vision and creativity for this pairing. And I think, you know, you're going to be in this part of your chart over this next season. However, you know, anytime we get really into one area, it's like a seesaw, isn't it? You know, there is an imbalance. You know, you start to express a lot more of this side, and then this side starts to get a bit fed up. It gets a bit ignored. You know, it's a little bit neglected. And then so we've always got the new moons on this side of the chart, you know, whichever season we're in, that's where all the new moons are. And then all the full moons are taking place over here. There are balance points. There are ballast, in fact, to stop you from going too far over one way. You get the full moon on the other side, just kind of tightly reining you back. And so, yeah, the first part of this forecast for you is really understanding these sort of overview energies. And then the second part of this is to also understand how the new moons and full moons fit into this. So we've got the new moons here, and I've just put in those pink points are the Mercury retrograde coming in on the 4th of August, actually on the day of the new moon in Leo. That's when Mercury goes retrograde from here back into your 7th. And then all the full moons are over here. In fact, we just had one yesterday. It's taken me so long to record this video from start to finish that I actually missed the first full moon, you know, by the time I've recorded this bit. So yeah, let's understand this. So yeah, as we start this season, you're really kind of reeling from the first season. You know, so the first season started in March at the time of the March equinox, when the sun went into the sign of Aries. And that you know, Aries for everyone at the moment is quite a sensitive sign, because the North Node is there, so it's showing us where our lessons are, and Chiron's there, it's also showing where our wounds are. And so March, April was a pretty strong time. You know, there's a lot of different themes going on during that time, including, you know, your sense of belonging, like where do you belong? What you're learning about friendships, maybe the people you've grown up with, what you're learning about the local social narrative, or the narrative of, you know, like your peer group, like the people that you're somehow connected to. Maybe you're all, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Maybe your family, your friends and cousins and things like that, you know, your local community probably has a way of thinking, a way of being, and maybe you're learning a little bit about that. Maybe you don't feel quite so grounded or bonded with them anymore. Hence why Chiron, going through this part of your chart, may be bringing up some difference and some pain associated with that. And then the North Node is really teaching you, what you need to learn about belonging to a community. And then, as the season went on, your focus really turned to home, and maybe how some of that was playing out at home. Uranus going through your 4th house does create a lot of change. And then you had Jupiter going through there. So it wouldn't have surprised me if you'd have moved home, or really considered moving home, or really changed the way you lived, because these are very, Uranus in the 4th is a very strong planet. It's been there a long time, but when Jupiter went in as well, and you got that Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, that would have absolutely set the way you live on a very new trajectory. And then, as you were leaving that season, it's almost like you'd learnt enough about belonging, and then it was like, God, it's been a bit heavy, and now I just need to express myself and feel a bit of joy. The 5th house is very much about where our joy comes from. And I think, when we are feeling a bit more grounded and a little bit more reminded of who we are, we can then start to generate joy for ourselves. We start to think about what we're creating and this, that, and the other. And that includes lovemaking, romance, our children, and all of our hobbies and the things that we're really talented about. Now, that obviously brings a lot of extra energy into your world, once you start creating. My house is full of creations. I live with some really creative people. We're always creating things. So we've got boxes full of stuff and old ideas tucked here and there and everywhere. I see a very physical representation of a family's worth of different interests and stuff. But what you'll understand is, if you're an ideas person and you've been generating a lot of joy for yourself, most likely you've got quite disorganized at home, and you need to kind of start to make more time for things, rearrange your schedule and your routines. And that's where you are right now. So as you went into, as we all went into the zodiac month of Cancer, this time of year is absolutely synonymous with you tidying things up. It's like, people have this idea of a spring clean. This is actually your time for a spring clean, where everything kind of gets back into order. You understand that maybe your routines need to be adapted or changed to meet your new needs. You might need to focus on your health, or bring that back into a better balance and alignment. And then your work and your money and all that, it's just kind of, everything is blown up. And so it's a time to bring it all back into balance. Now, during this time, in fact, let me just go into the next slide. You've got the 2 full moons. You've got 2 full moons in Capricorn in this zodiac month of Cancer, and you've also got the new moon in Cancer. So we've just had the full moon in Capricorn right at the start of Capricorn, and so that was most likely really showing you where you were really tight in energy, like low in energy, probably quite emotional, probably quite intuitive, probably wanting to collapse into bed, probably not wanting to move too much. These full moons, especially when they're in the 12th house, they bring up a bit of not mental illness necessarily, but you feel a little bit, I can only think of the word in French, like deranged, like you're not quite right. Oh, that's deranged. It's a little bit like you're not quite in your fit and healthy mental state. You're just feeling a little off. That's probably the best way I can describe it. And so you need a bit of time to yourself. You need a bit of time in your cave to get back into balance. And of course, you're needing that whilst, your house and your life are really saying, hey, get out of bed. You got things to attend to. So it's like, which voice are you're gonna work with? I mean, most of the energy is around here. You will find more energy, but again, you do need to manage this, because your health comes in here as well. Which brings me to the new moon coming up in a couple of weeks' time on the 5th of July. This new moon is fantastic for new health starts. So, you might already be working your way into it. So take those little small steps and start to feel like you're getting a little bit clearer. I mean, the key to this, I think, is don't rush. Just take little steps. You know, typically the 6th house energy is a little bit synonymous with the Virgo energy, which is little steps. It's not making this big effort in one go. Take these little bite-sized steps. Take it easy. And then, you know, around the 5th of July, you might actually feel like you're ready to make a commitment to something and to use that new moon energy to really start something that's going to make a big change. Because all those little steps, you know, when you look at the cumulative results of those, they are quite big. You know, they do add up. Now, as you come to the end of this Cancer season, just before we go into the zodiac month of Leo, there is a second full moon in Capricorn, and that one is in a conjunction with Pluto, which is really right in between the 12th and the 1st house. You know, it's going to be dancing between the two in this month ahead. And so with Pluto right here, you are likely to feel quite transforming. You know, it's really important that this season almost feels like it's an ending of something for a new beginning. In particular, because this is the last time during this season, Pluto is going to dip out of Aquarius and back into Capricorn. And it's the last time he's going to be in Capricorn, and then he's going to move forwards from November. You know, I think on the November the 19th or the 20th, he finally transitions into Aquarius. That is going to make a really big change. So in many respects, this season feels like the last season of a particular pattern. And if you think that you've had, you know, Pluto going through here for forever, you know, that's likely brought up a bit of depression. It's likely brought up a real sort of undercurrent of restlessness needing to be expressed. You know, this, I would imagine that you've learned a lot about control and this, that, and the other. And so I think whatever's going on here right now, just be aware that you're creating more space for yourself, because your life is likely to really change and really transform in quite a phenomenal way. So you do need to focus on this to get it right, and to keep getting it right, keep refining it, keep refining your life, because as Pluto comes through here, life's probably going to move quite quickly. And you've already had a good glimpse of that, you know. So you'd have had a look at that last year around March time in 2023. And then from January, at the end of January of 2024, you know, when each time Pluto ingressed into the sign of Aquarius. So I'll be very keen to find out how that's gone for you. It's a really big thing to happen, to have Pluto go over your ascendant. Now, as the zodiac month goes into Leo from the 22nd of July, the energy is into your partnerships, you know, so you're aware of lots of new opportunities through the people in your life. You're being pulled into more of a social and a sharing kind of way of being. Now, like Aquarius ascendant are no strangers to sharing at all. You know, in fact, they're really good at sharing, because there is an energy with Aquarius that is absolutely about not making themselves special. And there's also an energy about, it's funny because Aquarius is ruled by like Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is normalizing everything and stabilizing everything and creating these systems. And, you know, Uranus is like, I'm my individual self. I'm going to do things the way I want, and forging your own ways. And when you put those two energies together, you get quite a socialistic kind of mind view, you know, where everyone can be themselves. And then there are systems in place to allow everyone to feel equal in that. So it's a really interesting way. So it's a really interesting mindset. And obviously, as Pluto's coming in, you've probably noticed that, you know, politics and narratives around the world are really picking up on this. Everyone can be different and be themselves. It's really important. And by the way, even though everyone's different, everyone is the same as well. It's kind of confusing, and I don't understand what it's like to have that really strong Aquarius energy playing out in my life. It's not that big in my chart, but it's it's something that you've probably learned to deal with. And of course, as the sun comes into this part of your chart, there's this, you're learning from people who are actually quite sovereign in themselves. You know, the people that come into your life are probably quite dramatic and probably quite colorful and quite center of the room, center of attention. And so you're learning about a new side of yourself. You know, you do have that in you. Like, although, you know, you might have your sun here and your moon here and your ascendant here and this, that, and the other. Actually, we have all of everything in our charts. Just some things are more preferred. Like you might prefer to use your sun sign. You might prefer to use your particular moon sign. But in fact, like the whole chart, like within every birth chart, every single permutation of personality is captured within it, I believe. And so you get the chance to play at this more Leo way of being. You know, the people in your life are likely to bring up some drama and bring up some color, and it could be really, really fun. And they can be celebrated. They can be, people can put them on a pedestal, and you might get to learn what it's like to be more like that. And that is completely okay. So there's that going on. And the new moon that starts on the 4th is absolutely there to emphasize, I think, some of the great learnings that you're getting from these relationships, and possibly even new relationships coming in. Now, at this time as well, Mercury's going retrograde. So Mercury has already zipped into the 8th house, which is a pretty intense place to be. And so you might already be going into some judgments about the people in your life, or being receiving, or the like recipient of their judgments on your behaviors and your preferences. And so during this Mercury retrograde, you know, the energy is really pulling you back here to say, you know, yeah, judgments exist, but actually when we get to know somebody really, really well, we might move outside of judgments. We might just see that everybody is basically doing the best they can. Everyone is basically trying to enjoy themselves without hurting others. And, you know, I think as you come back into the 7th with your Mercury, you get the chance to really find out about the people in your life before the judgment kicks in. So allow this Mercury retrograde to, I think, bring you maybe a little bit more gratitude for the people that you're sharing your world with. And similarly, allow them to be grateful for you. You know, this is allowing everyone to come out of judgment from your perspective. And, you know, it's saying, hang on, I can hear this is getting a bit judgy. Whoa, let's slow this right down. You know, we are so much more than our judgments. And then we've got this full moon in Aquarius on the 19th. Now, that is in your first house. That is likely to make you feel really quite sensitive. It feels like there's a lot of changes going on. So you've been so far over here and almost like living the world and the dreams of other people, that all of a sudden you're needed to be pulled right back into your own persona to really experience who you are. And to remember, and it probably feels good and also a bit sensitive. So maybe in preparation for this, you might, I don't know, go off on your own a little bit. Not necessarily on a vision quest or anything, although you could. You might want to make it shamanic. But I just think a bit of time to yourself would be really useful, so that if you do, you know, if you do get really emotional, that you don't have to have witnesses to it. I probably would avoid alcohol around that time as well, given that it's a strong full moon in your first house. That never goes well. And then, you know, the next zodiac month, when we're going into the sign of Virgo, that is diving into some of those judgments. And again, it's another reason why just before we go into that time, you don't want to drunk dial anyone when you've got the full moon in your first house. So yeah, keep your powder dry there, because that could actually catapult you into your 8th house, where a lot of things get said and then there's a lot of judgments. You know, the 8th house is quite a difficult house to manage. You know, not all these houses are created equal, and I do believe there's a really good gift within each house. And yet this is quite tiring, you know, because a lot of the judgments that you might be having or experiencing through the people in your life, they appear to be really brand new judgments. But in fact, they're the same old judgments you've heard your whole life. You know, the 8th house really shows you the generational patterns, the things that you're carrying for other people. And they might be a viewpoint that's being passed down from many generations. You know, this goes back a long way, not just to your parents, but way beyond, because your parents have been programmed by their parents and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, the judgments here, it's so much more than your current friendship that is at stake. You know, that's why the 8th house feels so dire at times, but it's also a place where things can get really interesting. You know, it's also a place where we might work out our assets, our shared assets, our money. If you want to borrow money during this time, this is a great time to sort of work it out. And so the new moon on the 3rd of September could actually give you a new way of doing your money and working out your taxes and things like that. It could bring in a new focus on how there are other people's resources that are available to you to play with. You know, you don't have to do it all on your own, which brings me to the last full moon, actually, on the 18th of September. It's also an eclipse, and it just happens to be in a conjunction with Neptune. Not easy. You know, I always think that I'm going to have to clear my throat in a minute. One sec. So I always think that the full moon that happens in the second house. The second house is about our values. It's about really about how we earn money and how we manage our resources. But it's also about how we manage our self-esteem, because we are our own resource, aren't we? You know, we are our richest resource. From us and our intention, lots of great can happen. And so the full moon, which is a particularly sensitive part of, a time of the month, also in a conjunction with Neptune, you know, that brings up a lot of psychic energy, a lot of creativity, possibly deception, where you might lie to yourself and things. And so I really see that this is a very, again, a time when you might want to go off on your own a little bit and work things out, because I think it's really important for you to understand your true value. You know, it's a time to really understand who you are. And if we go back across this season, you have been working out who you are. You've been doing that the whole way through the season, from how you want to live and how you want to organize yourself, to how you've immersed yourself in your friendships and learnt more about yourself in the process, like how to be a bit more magnetic and radiant, you know, and then also to some of the judgments, you know, all these judgments that other people have had on you, you've probably held about yourself in some way. You know, you've accepted it, and you don't have to accept people's judgments. You can say, you know what, I see that that's your opinion, that's not mine. So you don't have to take everything on. And so, you know, this full moon, which is also the first eclipse of the second eclipse season. By the way, I've done a whole eclipse season video earlier this year, but it could come back into use. But, you know, this last full moon of this season is quite helpful for you to sum up who you are and how far you've come. It's really quite great. And so that brings me to the last bit. You know, at the start, I was talking about the gift of this season. You know, the North Node is still working through Aries in your 3rd house, and it's going to be working its way right the way through into the new year, and then it moves into the sign of Pisces. But this North Node is really showing you where you belong and how you can make your way in your local community, and how you can share and open up a bit more with people in your local community, how you make sense of it. And of course, you can't really do that if you don't know who you are. And that's what I think this gift of the season has been, is you've had a much more intimate sense of who you are through the juxtaposition and the relationships of you plus other people. It's really helping you. So the gift of this season is to see how much more you're belonging, or how you can find a way to belong to your community, to your sort of community of friends, given the changes you're going through. And then your opportunity from this, I think, you know, given that you're going to be feeling a bit more grounded in yourself at the end of the season, you know, Jupiter is working his way through your 5th house. You know, he's saying, okay, so you want joy, right? You want creativity. And of course, the more you know yourself, the more you understand where you want to bring joy up. If you were working on your joy and diving into creativity right from word go, you might find that things that you start creating actually become a bit more of a problem for you. However, if you're taking your foot off the creativity a little bit and then enjoying this season, the changes you're going through will inform what your next best creation will be. So I think the opportunity here is to watch how you're changing. And then from that, you really know what to create for yourself. So you're not creating for yourself another problem. You're actually creating for yourself a way of being that is going to lighten you up. So I think that's my overall message for you, Aquarius Ascendant. I hope that's helpful. Have a fantastic season ahead and look forward to catching up with you another time. Lots of love.